children. So I hope yesterday you understood the combustion and the respiration process, and we are going to continue the topic, and we are going to see the evolution in gases exchanging system. So how the gases are exchanged in the different animals and all, that is what we are going to see now. So now this respiration is a very common process in all the living organisms. So now what is respiration? Taking in the oxygen and giving out the carbon dioxide is the respiration which we know in the earlier classes. But now we have learned that the respiration is like the oxygen goes inside, it gets the glucose gets oxidized and burns in the presence of oxygen and carbon dioxide, heat, okay, and also a lot of energy is released in this process. Okay, so now this process is giving the energy. So why we are respiring? What is the reason behind the respiration? Respiration actually gives you the energy. You know, we have already learned that in the cells, the mitochondria are called as the powerhouse of the cell, because the energy production process and everything will take place in where? In the mitochondria. So mitochondria are basically called as the powerhouse of the cells, because they are the ones which are generating the energy. Okay, so now when you come to is this process similar in all the living organisms? Do all the living organisms generate the energy? Okay, do all the organisms undergo respiration process? Okay, how it was in the earlier stages of the evolution? How about it in the unicellular organisms? Okay, and how it is different in the multicellular organisms? Okay, is it similar in all the phylums? Do all the animals have the similar kind of respiratory systems? So these are all the questions which comes in our mind when you talk about this topic. So now if you see the unicellular organisms like amoeba is only a single celled, right? It's a unicellular organism. So whatever the process it has to take place, it has to take only through the one single cell, that is through the cell membrane. So the process which happens in the amoeba is the diffusion. So only through the diffusion there will be exchange of the gases, that is oxygen going inside the cell of the amoeba and carbon dioxide coming out of the cell of amoeba. So that is only by the process of the diffusion and only occurs through the cell membrane. Okay, and next, if you come to the multicellular organisms like Hydra and Planaria, even though these are the multicellular, but they are very, very tiny, very, very small, but still the kind of respiration which happens in these organisms is also through diffusion. So even this Planaria or the Hydra, you know what is a Hydra? Yeah, it is this kind of shaped organism which lives in the water. Basically, it won't move. It's a stationary. That means it is attached to one particular substratum. Okay, so basically this, if you see this Hydra, it is a stationary animal. It doesn't move anywhere. So these Hydras and the Planarias, like all these organisms will undergo kind of respiration, and the respiration is the process through the diffusion. So you already know what is diffusion, right? So now coming to the a bit bigger animals, like if you take the insects, like how the respiration process will take place in the insects. So different organisms living in our vicinity, they depend upon the respiration process. Okay, so they have to survive, and the kind of respiration they have is completely based on the kind of habitat they live. Okay, so each and every animal has their own habitat, isn't it? So their own place to live, isn't it? For example, if you take the fishes, they live in the water. That means they have to only take the dissolved oxygen which is in the water. And all the animals, or the terrestrial animals, are they depend upon the atmospheric oxygen. So if you go to some the animals which are living in the deep burrows and furrows, now their kind of respiration is different. So each and every organism's respiration is completely depend upon the habitat they are living. Second thing is that their body size also matters. If it is unicellular, if it is a multicellular, if it is very small, if it is very big, so it also depends. And also it also depends upon the availability of water. Okay, so these are all the factors on which the respiration usually depends upon. And one of the very, very important feature where the respiration depends upon is the kind of circulatory system it has, because when you take the oxygen, that should be circulated to the different parts of the body, different cells of the body, different tissues of the body. So if you don't have a proper right and appropriate circulatory system, then the respiration process will become a bit problem, isn't it? Otherwise the oxygen will not be sent into each and every part of the body. So the kind of respiratory system you have, it always depends upon the kind of circulatory system you have. So these are all the factors on which the respiration is based, right? Based on the habitat they live, based on their body size, based on the availability of water, and based on the kind of circulatory system they have. Okay, now first of all we'll try to read about we'll try to discuss about the insects, right? In the insects, we'll take the cockroach. Cockroach, they belong to the phylum which is called as Arthropoda. Arthropoda in the sense joint legs. Arthro in the sense joint and poda in the sense legs. So they belong to the phylum called as Arthropoda. Basically all the insects and all, they belong to the Arthropoda. Okay, so mostly the legs are present in the 3 pairs, and in some insects, they are present in the 4 pairs, right? For example, if you take the cockroach, there are 3 pairs of legs, you can see. If it is a spider, they have the 4 pairs of legs. So, but what are the legs they have? They are all joined together, right? They are joint legs, right? So they are joined at a particular point. So that's why they are called as they are given a phylum called as Arthropoda. So now this cockroach has a respiratory system, but it is completely a different respiratory system. Right now we have the trachea here, right? So this is the trachea we have. In the same, the insects also, cockroach also will have the trachea, all the tube-like structure called as trachea, and the trachea will divide into some very, very smaller tube-like structures which are called as the tracheoles, and these expand throughout the body. They go throughout the body and they diffuse the kind of oxygen to each and every part or each and every cell and each and every tissue of the body. So these are the tracheoles, they play a major role in the respiration. So trachea and tracheoles, they play a major role. That's why the respiration process is called as the tracheal respiration. Especially in the insects, what kind of respiration takes place? The respiration which takes place here is the tracheal respiration. Okay, children, so this is a tracheal respiration which takes place in the cockroach. Okay, now we'll come to the second one, that is the fishes. Okay, so if you observe in the cockroach, there are trachea. Okay, there is a trachea, and the trachea will be divided into fine branches called as tracheoles. Okay, which will carry the oxygen to each and every part of the body. Now if you see the cockroach, blood of the cockroach, it is white in color. That means it doesn't have the hemoglobin. So because it doesn't have the hemoglobin, it cannot carry, the blood cannot carry the oxygen to each and every cell of the body. So that's why the whole process of the pumping of the or sending the oxygen to each and every cell and each and every tissue is completely based or is taken up by the tracheoles and the trachea. So as the trachea and the tracheoles are used in the or helping in the respiration process, we call this respiration as the tracheal respiration. Okay, children, so now we'll go ahead with the respiration in the fishes. Okay, now we'll come to the respiration in the fishes. Now, because the fishes live in the water, they cannot breathe the atmospheric oxygen. So they should have some separate structures which will help them in the respiration in the water. That means they have to take the dissolved oxygen. You know what is H2O? That is, okay, hydrogen and also oxygen. So they have to take the dissolved oxygen which is in the water. So they should have some separate structures for that, isn't it? So for this, they have some special structures which are called as the gills, and these gills are also called as the branchiae. Okay, remember the word called as branchiae. This is the same word, same kind of word which is studied in the human respiration also, right? Bronchi and bronchioles, right? But here it's a bit different. So you can say it's a branchiae. So gills are also called as the branchiae. Okay, now you might have seen the fish continuously opening its mouth. Okay, now what is the purpose of opening the mouth? So do you think it will be always drinking the water? Is that the reason why it keeps on opening the mouth? Because the fish lives in the water, so it keeps on opening the mouth. So what is the purpose of the opening of the mouth? So the purpose behind the opening of the mouth is whenever it opens the mouth, whenever it opens the mouth, the water will enter inside and then it will raise the oral cavity and the water will be pushed into the pharynx. Okay, so the reason is a bit different reason, okay, why it will swallow the water continuously. So it opens the mouth, the water enters inside, it will raise the oral cavity. As we swallow the food, the same thing will happen in the fish also. It will raise the oral cavity, the water will be pushed into the pharynx. So from the pharynx, okay, they will enter the external branchial apertures, okay, and from the external branchial apertures, okay, they will go to the internal branchial apertures, okay. These are the internal branchial apertures. Okay, from the internal branchial apertures, they will come into the gills. Okay, so this gills is the part where the exchange of gases will take place. Now, these are the gill pouches you can see here. Okay, there are pouch-like structures where there are gills and all, and there are some special structures which are called as the Gill Lamellae are present. Okay, you can see here these are the Gill Lamellae which are present in the gills, and these gills are basically supplied with a large number of blood vessels. They are supplied with large number of blood vessels. So now these blood vessels will be readily there to take the oxygen. So whenever the water comes inside, they will bar the gill pouches. They will bar the gill lamellae. So they will come into the gill lamellae. The water, when it enters inside, it enters into the mouth, through the mouth, comes into the pharynx, and then comes into the external branchial apertures, and then comes to the internal branchial apertures, and then it comes to the gill pouches where it will completely wet the gill lamellae, and the blood capillaries which are over there, they will diffuse the oxygen inside, and then it will diffuse the carbon dioxide outside. So that is how the diffusion of gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide, the exchanging of gases is taking place in the gills. Okay, and that's the reason why, because this gills are also called as the branchiae, this respiration is called as the branchial respiration. What is called as branchial respiration? Branchial respiration. So this takes place in the fishes, and tracheal takes place in the cockroaches, that is in the insects. Okay, so this is how the branchial respiration will take place, right? Mouth, external pharynx, external branchial apertures, then internal branchial apertures, then gill pouch, and then gill lamellae, and then diffusion in the exchange of gases takes place in the blood capillaries. Okay, this is how we can say that the respiration in the fishes will take place. So this respiration, as is taking place in the gills, which is also called as the branchiae, now we call this respiration as the branchial respiration. So children, when you come to the amphibians, right, when you come to the frog and all, it's usually called it's called as the amphibian, right, because it stays in the land and also stays in the water. So now there's a confusion. If it is staying on the land like us, they should respire with the lungs. If it is staying in the water, they should respire as a fishes, right, with the help of the gills and all, right. Till the frog is in the form of a tadpole and all, they have gills. But when it becomes a complete adult, the gills are disappeared, and in the place of gills, the formation of lungs will take place, right. Though they have the lungs, though they can undergo the respiration with the lungs and all, but most of the time frogs use their skin to respire. Okay, so large number of blood vessels are present on the skin. So whatever the oxygen which goes into the body through the skin and all, no, that will be sent to each and every part of the body, each and every cell of the body. So most of the time the respiration in the frog is done with the help of the skin. So as the respiration is done with the skin, okay, it's not like that they won't respire with the lungs. They also respire with the lungs, but in a very, very small amount. You know, if you keep a frog away from the water for a long time, it will die. You know why it will die? Because most of the respiration is done through the skin, and when the skin dries, so, and moreover, if you see the frogs and all, no, they keep on jumping into the water and comes back and sits on the rocks. Now, why they will jump like that? Because they have to retain the water. So if they have to live, if they have to survive, they have to keep their skin moist always. They have to keep their skin humidified. So that's the reason why, to retain the water, like if you take a sponge and put in the water, the sponge will retain the water, right? It will absorb the water and it will stay for a long time, right? So once the frogs feel that the water which is on their body is getting evaporated, again they will jump into the water, retain some water, and they will come back, right? So even when you try to touch this frog, it is absolutely slippery. So if you try to catch that, it slips from your hands, isn't it? The reason is that the entire body surface of the frog will have the mucous membrane, and this mucus will help in retention of the water. It will retain the water so that the frog will not die. So if you keep the frog away from the water for a long time, the frog cannot respire with the lungs. So because the skin dries up, the frog also will die. Okay, so that's the reason why you see the frogs in the ponds, they jump into the water and they come and sit outside. So they can respire through the lungs, they can respire through the water. Okay, so that is in the form of with the help of the skin. So if the and also you can take the example of the earthworm also, right? Earthworm also respires with the help of the skin. So the red skin which is present on that, the skin will have large number of blood capillaries on them, which will help in the respiration process. So once earthworms also, they will be very, very moist, right? They will be very slippery to touch. Okay, so because they have to retain the water on their body, there is a mucous membrane on their surfaces. So that is how both of these organisms will undergo respiration with the help of the skin. That's why the respiration is called as the cutaneous respiration. So the respiration with the skin is called as the cutaneous respiration. And now when you come to the human beings and the higher animals, we have the lungs, right? And whatever we respire, no, it is only through the lungs, right? So if the higher animals are using the lungs, and already you know the complete procedure, so we call this respiration as the pulmonary respiration. We call it as pulmonary respiration. So now we'll see all the 4 different types of respirations. What's the first one? Tracheal respiration. Okay, which animal undergoes that? All the insects. What is the example we have taken? A cockroach. Second one is the branchial respiration. Which animals undergo? Fishes. We call the respiration as the branchial respiration. Example you can take is the fishes. Third one is the cutaneous respiration. So what is cutaneous respiration? The respiration which takes place through the skin, right? That is called as the cutaneous respiration. Examples: earthworm and frog. And the last one is the pulmonary respiration, usually occurs in the higher animals. The best example is that you can write your name, that is the human beings. And also that is how we come to the end of the different forms of respiration here. And one more thing also we can include here: diffusion, that is amoeba. In the lower animals, especially in the unicellular organisms, diffusion is a process which takes place for the exchange of gases, and especially example you can take the amoeba. Okay, so by this we come to the end of the respiration in the animals, and tomorrow we'll go ahead with the respiration of special respiration of the plants, right? How the plants will respire, and about the mangroves, and about also whether the same products, what are the products which are released during the respiration and all. That is what we are going to see tomorrow. Until then, see you all. Have a great day.